These measures aroused horror and resentment amongst all classes in the Southern Ireland. Other Irish nationalists ignored the fact that the fiasco had been the rising. As a result of these reactions and also pressure from the USA, Austria concluded new efforts to be made for an Irish settlement. Redmond and Carson proposed a Home Rule solution, which was founded by Lloyd George, and both sides surprisingly accepted it. Key unionists in the coalition government were against the grant of Home Rule, though. So that's it.
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, so I think I may have lost an overhead here, but never mind. I'll have to talk you through one or two of the bits and pieces.
Hi, my name is James Ball and we are investigating the Irish crisis. Hostilities have arisen over the controversial subject of Home Rule for Ireland. Ireland has been split between continuing under the rule of Britain or to have their own MP. The Irish people are split between the Unionists, which believe that they should stay under British rule, or the Nationalists wanting to become a united Ireland. Here is the Unionist perspective of events from Heather and Claire.
As Unionists, we believe that Home Rule is bad for Ireland, and we therefore want to continue to be ruled from London. Our friends on the Ulster Unionist Council believe they could still run the Ulster government if Home Rule was passed, as we would have the help from the Anglo-Scottish landowner Belfast.
Okay, thank you Heather and thank you Claire. Next is the nationalist perspective of events by Mark and Robert.
The Liberals won a landslide victory in 1906. The Nationalists saw this as an opportunity to gain Home Rule. As the Liberals had no real policies, they could be sympathetic to the Irish situation. This was viewed as a positive opportunity, as the Liberals have been traditionally sympathetic to the Nationalists. The Home Rule Bill had also been a traditional policy for the Liberals. It would provide Ireland with an Irish Parliament given limited authority, but it could address the issues such as finance, defence and foreign affairs. A new Dublin Parliament could also be formed. When it was passed, the House of Commons said it would be unlikely to get through the House of Lords. It came into the limelight when the Irish Nationalists joined the Liberals after the 1909 election. It would be more likely to be forced through the Lords after they'd lost their power of veto. The Nationalists would have been happy. It meant that there was more chance for Home Rule, less oppression and a chance to create their own lives. They would have also become recognised by the authorities. However, they were unhappy, nothing had changed and it wasn't a guarantee for change.
However, it wasn't all good for the Liberals. The Wyndham Land Act in 1903 was passed by Balfour's government. It was thought of as killing with kindness. This took land away from the Protestants for inflated prices. This would have pleased the Nationalists as they got their own land. It also meant that they would get identity and more rights. It also meant less oppression and more chance of the Home Rule Bill being passed. This also made them unhappy as it didn't go far enough for the Nationalists. Both the Liberals' victory in 1906 and the formation of the UVF scared the Nationalists. The formation of the UVF, Sir Edward Carson, Solicitor General for Ireland and constitute the Unionists of Belfast, gave the idea for starting the UVF. He wanted to form an open resistance to Home Rule. It trained and drilled in military formation. It also attended the demonstration opposing Home Rule. This led to the formation of the RRA and the ICB.
Thank you Mark, thank you Robert. Next we have the Liberal perspective of events from Ms Carter.
Thank you, good evening. As you've heard, it has been part of our policy to try and promote this idea of Home Rule. When Asquith took over the leadership of our party, he took a programme of wait and see. He wanted to do a step-by-step approach to making sure that this situation was properly resolved. We had to send in, unfortunately, troops at times because both sides got things out of hand. They took the law into their own hands, forming their own paramilitary armies, which we've already heard about. The situation was compounded by arms being landed by both sides at Larne and Haworth. And when the army then mutinied, it put us in a very difficult situation. The Irish Home Rule Bill of 1912 was introduced, but unfortunately it wasn't able to be seen through because of the outbreak of World War I. But various issues still hadn't been resolved. For example, how was Ulster going to be divided? It wasn't going to be home rule for everybody, it was going to be home rule for some. Was that going to
When Britain declared war on Germany in August 1914...
Now we will hear about the Easter Uprising from James.
Thanks very much. When Britain declared war on Germany in August 1914, a temporary agreement was reached. The Home Rule Bill would be passed, it would not be enforced until after the war. This satisfied all parties, as they understood the war was more important. However, it was not long before the old tensions formed again. In the trenches, there were suspicions that Ulster men were receiving special treatment, and more extreme nationalists want to exploit Britain's wartime weakness to enforce equality. 11,000 breakaway troops formed the Irish Volunteers. Their leader was John McNeill. They believed that even Home Rule wouldn't provide enough freedom for Ireland.
Okay, Ross. 1, 2, 3. Patrick Pearse and 6 co-conspirators: James Connolly, Thomas Clark, Thomas Mc... Patrick Pearse and 6 co-conspirators signed the Proclamation of an Irish Republic. They planned the uprising in secret as they knew McNeill would not approve. Easter Monday was chosen for the rebellion. It would be quiet. 1,600 rebels occupied Dublin Central Post Office, but were hopelessly outnumbered by the police and the army. The hope for help from the Dubliners, yet none came. After 6 days of fighting, on the 29th of April, 450 had died and 2,500 were wounded in the fighting. The rebels surrendered. It seemed like an agreement would be reached. People believed that the exclusion of Ulster is the only hope for a peaceful Ireland. Yet the government mishandled the situation again, executing the leaders of the uprising and turning them into martyrs. Fluids of torture and beatings enraged the South and created an
Now we will hear the events after the Easter Uprising. Now I will join Mr. Oysted about the events after the uprising. 3,000 arrested, 160 suffered imprisonment, 90 sentenced to death, and 15 condemned. This is an attempt to destroy revolutionary nationalism, root and branch. Overall, 3,000 Irish men and women were arrested, imprisoned, and they suffered internment, and some executed. In Britain, Asquith handed over the problem of the aftermath to the army. General Maxwell, British Commander-in-Chief. Bernard Shaw remarked the British were colonising their prisons.
These measures aroused horror and resentment amongst all classes in the Southern Ireland. Other Irish nationalists in Northern fathomed the fiasco in the rising. As a result of these reactions and also pressure from the USA, Asquith concluded new efforts to be made for an Irish settlement. Redmond and Clarkson proposed a home rule solution, which was founded by Lloyd George, and both sides surprisingly accepted it. Key unionists in the coalition government were against the grant of home rule, though. So